Sony just had their PlayStation 5 reveal event, and let's be honest, even though E3 isn't happening this year because of the coronavirus and quarantine and people trying to be safe, this more or less was their E3 presentation. So in the spirit of things, I figured why not grade it like it was an E3 presentation. And for all intents and purposes, it was. All they did was exchange all the people out on a stage talking off a script into the crowd with people showing up on Zoom calls, and you can tell that they were new at this. It's fine, I get it. Turns out making stuff for the internet in video form isn't as easy as most YouTubers make it look. Like, sometimes your Zoom call just looks weird or out of focus, or maybe you put your lavalier mic on upside down. I get it, it's hard, but that's okay. We're not here to judge you on that. It's a weird, different time for all of us. But we're just gonna focus on your presentation. And the main thing about this was all about the PlayStation 5. So people came into this wanting information about the PlayStation 5, but we're gonna go through all the games and all lists, right through all of them. And it actually started off with a very, very awkward way to begin, because the very first thing that they show off for the PlayStation 5 is Grand Theft Auto 5. Okay. It's an exciting deal where it basically says that anyone who buys a PlayStation 5 can get Grand Theft Auto 5 for free at launch. That's a good deal, but that's a super great deal. That kind of a weird, exciting way to show off the capabilities or power of PlayStation 5 by showing a several-year-old game that they continue to milk the money out of, and this is another way to do that because if more people own the game, hey, maybe they'll do more microtransactions. Not a Grand Theft Auto 5 player myself, but a free game like that, that's a good deal. I don't think that's something they should have led off with to like drive excitement for people with a PS5, but a good deal nonetheless. Speaking of other like weird ways to kind of like put people into like the excitement and drive wanting the PlayStation 5 was they didn't seem to really like just shove people in and be like, look at all this PlayStation 5 you can swim in. They just let people slowly dip their toes in, very slowly, and to get them used to it for some reason. I don't really know why. As indicative by the second game they showed off, which was Spider-Man Miles Morales, which a lot of people got super excited over. Which, first off, Miles Morales getting his own game, super cool. Love that. Everyone's already excited for like, wow, Spider-Man sequel already? Dang, that's so cool. Except it's not a sequel. It's not a sequel. Basically, the PS4 game Spider-Man is going to be ported to the PlayStation 5, and there's going to be an all-new Miles Morales expansion pack for that game. I imagine that's also going to be sold for PlayStation 4 separately or as DLC or something, and just going to be included in with the PS5, but it isn't an all-new game. It's just an expansion pack. So again, cool, but this wasn't like driving people right into the excitement of the PS5 right away, because we're seeing old stuff we already know and are familiar with to get us excited about a new console. It was just it felt like at the start a lot of excitement was kind of being sucked out of me, and maybe I'm the only one there, but that's the big thing with the Spider-Man game, is that it's not an all-new game. It is just an expansion. They did say it's coming this holiday, which means it will come near or at launch, which is good. That's a good thing to say, because like that helps confirm that PlayStation 5 is indeed coming this year. And thankfully they did go quickly into a slew of new PS5 games. And the first one they showed off was another long-going franchise, and a one they seem to use frequently to show off their new consoles, and that was Gran Turismo 7. And again, I'm not very much a Gran Turismo player, so I don't know how good it looked or the specifics or anything like that, but they did do a really good job of just showing off gameplay. They had a solid like minute and a half, 2 minutes of just first-person driving in Gran Turismo to really show like, hey, this is how it looks, this is how it plays. You can kind of get a feel for it. Since I'm not familiar with the franchise at all, I don't know how it looks good. It sure looks pretty, and I know that's something they really want to show. They talked about ray tracing a lot throughout the entire press conference. Ray tracing is like the new hotness. It's been around for a long time, but the fact that they can now get ray tracing available on just a consumer machine at home is a big deal. What this means is that things are shiny. Some things are shiny. Actually, I really noticed that in the next game they showed off, which was an all-new Ratchet and Clank. Awesome, cool, great new Ratchet and Clank game. Very, very cool cinematic trailer with Ratchet and Clank going through numerous portals and ending up in different worlds, like back to back to back, like grinding down a rail and like leap off and then go through another portal, the fall into another world and then go through another portal and end up in a different world. It's happening so fast and so rapidly that visually is very stunning and kind of gave an idea of what the gameplay is. And that's one of the things they did super well, is that after the cinematic trailer, they talked about a little bit and then they showed more raw gameplay, which looked like more Ratchet and Clank third-person kind of shooter wackiness. They have this new portal system where you like throw like a grappling hook at like these like portal domes, and you pull yourself towards it or the portal towards you or something. It's kind of trippy. Like they did like a really visual transition through this portal, but it just kind of seemed to put you into like whatever that spot was rather than changing the whole world. I mean, that's something that could be different. It seems that the like alternate universe is going to be very much a thing, because they showed off Clank got like separated from Ratchet and was looking for him, and then pop, drops down basically a lady Ratchet, if you will. And just want to check something actually real quick before I keep going on with Ratchet. And yep, okay, there's already porn of her, so seems like she's a hit, so people are looking forward to that. And it actually did look really cool, very cool. New Ratchet and Clank, very solid. And then they started going into a lot of new stuff. Like, we had all the familiar franchises right at the start, and from there on, it was just like new after new after new. Starting off with a new game from Square Enix, which doesn't even have an official title yet, just called Project Athia. It looked like a third-person action game in the veins of like God of War, that Star Wars game that just came out, or the Uncharted series, that kind of like third-person action. Only she has druid powers? I don't know. It was cool to see something visually stunning and something new coming from Square Enix, something that's not Final Fantasy. They then showed off that cat game from a couple years ago. Do you remember that? It's called Stray. Super adorable. I'll be excited for it again. It's a cat with a backpack living in a robot world, doing some courier services, or is trying to survive. I don't know, but it's a game where you get to play as a cat. I thought it was cool. This is when they took a moment to show off some of the features of the controller, which we pretty much already knew everything there. That wasn't super new. And then it was right back into new games, including another third-person shooter where it was not exactly horror-based, but some eldritch looking creatures constantly killing this older woman in a spacesuit over and over again. And she even says she has to like relive her death over and over again to get closer to the truth or something like that. So it seems like dying and coming back to play stuff again is going to be very much a mechanic. It was a lot of CG trailer at first, but then they showed little bits of the gameplay, and it looked more like cinematic third-person shooter. Like, I didn't see anything exciting outside of like using one analog stick to move and the other analog stick to aim and fire. And the game's called Returnal, which I get it. Return and Eternal mashed together. I kind of think it's a dumb name, but I get it. Went right into another new game. A new game with a familiar face. Sackboy shows up, but it's not Little Big Planet 4. It's Sackboy's Big Adventure, which was basically Sackboy's 3D world. They like saw Super Mario 3D World and just said, what if we Sackboy it? So it's a 4-player co-op action platformer. Didn't look like there's anything about creating stages or anything like that. They just wanted a pure platformer starring Sackboy, complete with that same kind of customization and that craft aesthetic of the entire world. That looks cool. That kind of, they're providing those kind of platformers for people who want it. That's great. I think that's good. They went to another game, an all-new one called Destruction All-Stars, which was like if Twisted Metal met Fortnite. A very cartoony, fast-paced destruction derby kind of game with over-the-top characters and personalities and pseudo-cartoony aesthetic. Not like incredibly cartoony. I actually thought it looked pretty good because it showed them like can crash your car and then you have to run around on foot and can also still attack cars. I thought it looked cool. They went into another game that called Kena? They had a specific pronunciation, I can't remember. Bridge of Spirits, which looks very much like if they took a DreamWorks animated feature and just made it into a game. It was like it looked like if Legend of Zelda had Pikmin elements, like that kind of third-person adventure, cartoony world, more druid powers. They then showed off a completely 2D animated game called Goodbye Volcano High, and this very much looks like a story-driven narrative-based game in the same veins of something like Night in the Woods, or it basically showed like a lot of like kind of like lizard people discovering relationships and graduating high school and all of that. That said, couldn't tell you what the game actually is. That was one of those things where I don't know what this is. It was all just like animated pieces. I assume it's going to be a visual novel, but I don't know. No idea what the actual gameplay is, but they did confirm it's going to be like an LGBT-friendly story. Wish I knew what the game actually was or what it looked like, but okay. I feel like that could have been a little bit better. They then showed off the all-new Oddworld game, which is super cool, called Oddworld Soulstorm, which is like an all-new sequel, not a remake, not a side story, not a reimagining. Showed more gameplay stuff in there, based about trying to save a bunch of inhabitants, but more importantly, get them to safety, because they showed a lot of them dying, constantly trying to get them to safety. So that's gonna be a main mechanic. So gameplay was shown in there. There's like a third-person turret section I saw for a little bit as you try to protect all the different inhabitants because they are worthless. They then showed off Ghostwire Tokyo, which they first announced last year. And it was like a spooky first-person shooter. I wasn't expecting it to be spooky. There's a lot of magic stuff. There's a lot of like kind of cyberpunk feel, and then spooky ghosts and using your magic hands to stop them or defeat them. Importantly about that, they didn't show off any VR stuff. No VR stuff at all that they showed for the PlayStation 5. So they might just kind of be abandoning that whole idea with PlayStation 5. That probably didn't quite take off like they thought it would. Or they just chose not to show it. But based on what they showed, nothing for VR stuff. Another new game they showed off was Space Rocket, which was like kind of reminded me of Flower, but with a rocket. It just kind of seemed to be about planet exploration and about finding inhabitable planets. Not entirely sure what the actual goal is. They did show gameplay of like actual rockets flying over surfaces of planets and like exploring that. What you do with that, couldn't tell. But this was a game they did say it's coming in holiday 2020. Another game coming in holiday 2020 was a game called Godfall that's Gearbox is publishing, not developing, just publishing, which just seemed like a third-person action brawler where you play different characters, had like a different armor and swords and weapons, and they're just like beating dudes up really hard, and all of the splash words were just like, get power, get armor to fear God, aren't you fucking cool? It was one of those kind of games, just like beat the shit out of stuff and fantasy, medieval, whatever. But that is another one that's coming for holiday 2020, which is good. Games are coming this year for PlayStation 5. They also showed off the new game from the Hyperlight Drifter Studios called Solar Ash, which has like a very same aesthetic as Hyperlight Drifter, only not pixel anymore. It's all full 3D world. Couldn't tell you much more about it other than it's the same kind of exploration. I don't know if it's like a sequel or pseudo-sequel or whatever, but that one's not coming until 2021, but another new thing coming. They also officially announced Hitman 3, which isn't coming this holiday, but they did slate it for January 2021, so it's launch window for PlayStation 5, which is great. And it's an all-new Hitman game. They also showed off another platformer game called Astro's Playroom, where the little robot character that they used from some of the PlayStation VR games is getting his own game. And it pretty much looked like, pardon another Mario comparison, but looked like Robot Mario Sunshine. It was, he was doing a lot of water stuff. It was a lot of like kind of vacation Hawaii island aesthetic as he just ran around and did platforming things. So Robot Mario Sunshine, also for PlayStation 5. NBA 2K21 was officially shown. They said it was all running in-engine, was not gameplay at all. And all I could tell you about it was that there was sweat on a guy. Yeah. Interesting, they said that was coming fall 2020. All the other games have said holiday 2020. I don't think that's necessarily a hint that the PlayStation 5 is actually coming out in the fall instead of holidays. My guess is NBA 2K21 is coming out in the fall, and the PS5 version is going to come out whenever the PS5 is out, which is probably closer to holiday. Or that was just a miscommunication between 2K Studios and Sony. I don't know. Probably reading too much into that. Then they showed off another adorable game from the creators of Octodad called Bugsnax. I saw that and said, you are what you eat. Literally an island, it was super cartoony, and every single bug or animal or whatever was a food, like a little strawberry ant, or like a banana bugworm, or like a donut caterpillar. It was like stuff like that. And then if you ate them, whatever you ate would like become a part of you, which probably somehow affects your abilities, but it was a cool concept. That's another one's coming this year. And then out of nowhere, they announced the remake of Demon's Souls, which Demon's Souls was how I got started with the whole Souls games, and it was great on PS3, and they were remaking it from the ground up. It wasn't just like an HD remaster where they take the same game and kind of polish it up with new textures. No, they're doing quite a bit. Like, it looks super different. I'm really fascinated what they're gonna do with the online functionality and if that's gonna change it all, but Demon's Souls remake is coming. When? I don't know, but they announced it. They also showed off a new game called Deathloop, which is being published by Bethesda, and I would describe as, it was like Dishonored. It looked like Dishonored style gameplay, like if not using the exact same engine, heavily inspired by first person, guns, teleporting short distances around all over, but I actually really like the concept. The concept is you're a guy, an assassin, trying to survive all these rich folks being brought to like this city or area or whatever, and their only goal is to hunt and kill you. And every time you die, you get brought back to life so you can do it the next day for the next group of rich folk. And at the same time, there's another group of assassins also trying to kill you. So you're trying to figure out why this is happening, why it's done to you, and how to escape. Like, the concept's actually really cool. The gameplay looked a lot like Dishonored first-person shooter stuff. Not even that stealth-based. But more importantly, they also showed there are multiple playable characters. Like, aside from the main guy that you're playing as, it suddenly showed the camera shifting to the perspective of one of the other assassins trying to take that guy down. Cool. Concept really cool, very, very stylistic in its presentation as well. But that was one of those games where the gameplay they showed was fake as fuck. Where they try to like do, like they showed the gun, they showed like the first person perspective and all that, but the way the game was moving with the camera movements, like someone on the control stick or whatever, was not possible with the way a human thumb can react to a control stick, just not believable enough for it to be like in engine. So they showed the concept off really well, but that gameplay was fake as fuck. Another big one was then they showed off a horror game, which looked awesome. It was very, very dark. It was called The Village. There was like werewolves, there was a lot of first person stuff, a lot of spooky stuff, different weird characters, a lot of enigmatic things. And it's not just The Village though, it's Resident Evil 8, The Village. And things I liked about this, one, another Resident Evil game, it's all new. I really like the Resident Evil 7. I really like Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, 4, 5, 1, 2, and 3. I wish they would make Resident Evil 6 though. I would love to see Resident Evil 6. I don't know why they skipped that, that's so weird. Oh well. But what's cool about that is that they showed that Ethan from Resident Evil 7 is back as the playable character, and Chris Redfield is also there interacting with them. And thank God Chris Redfield is back looking more like Chris Redfield, like we've seen him in Resident Evil 5, Revelations, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, basically like his established look. He's back to looking more like that than whatever the hell happened to him in Resident Evil 7, so thank God for that. My current guess is that it's like a low-key prequel to Resident Evil 4, since it's all about the village, and they looked like they had that same kind of aesthetic and vibe as the village that Leon Kennedy goes to in Resident Evil 4. That's my guess. Probably not right, but that's my guess. As exciting as that was a bad trailer. Aside from the audio being way too quiet compared to everything else, it ran like shit. It was going at like 18, 20 frames per second the whole way through. It looked bad. It did not look good for the game or the PS5 for that matter. It was just stuttery and janky the entire way through on this like pre-baked, pre-cooked trailer. That was a bit rough. It's coming out in 2021. That's 3 Resident Evil games, 3 years in a row, but ooh, it looked rough. Go back and check it. Like, it was rough. That was the only time where I was like, oh, I don't know if they should have shown this or maybe waited a bit until it looked better. I don't know what's going on there. A couple of the games they showed off was another new game from Capcom called Pragmata, but it was like future weird robot little girl talking to a person in a spacesuit, and then it was I don't know, they had to fall to the moon and save the planet. That was another one where they didn't really show off any kind of gameplay. I couldn't tell if it was horror based or action based or what. I definitely got some like Dead Space kind of set piece vibes from it. Like a satellite was falling away from the Earth and they were falling with it away from the Earth up onto the moon, and I don't know. It's something new from Capcom, new franchise, not a new sequel or anything like that, which is cool. And then their final big announcement was an all-new Horizon game called Horizon Forbidden West. Aloy is back. She's going off west, I guess. They didn't show any actual literal gameplay, but they did show a lot of like little snippets of what gameplay is going to be like. A big thing being underwater exploration is going to be a thing. And then they got to what I call the Zoom call portion, where dozens of developers and Sony staff all got on their Zoom call to talk about how cool the PlayStation 5 is, and they use the same usual buzzwords you see every E3, where it's like brand new player experiences and narratives and worlds and same shit. But more importantly, that's when they finally showed off what the console actually looks like. And it looks fine. It looks fine. I can't remember the last time a new console was shown and people didn't make fun of it somehow. It's white, it's glossy. People said, like, to me it looks like a book, which I kind of thought was cool, like the middle black section with the main console, flanked by the two glossy white sides. Like, it looked like a book cover being closed up and kind of protecting it. Other people have kind of compared it to looking like a router and all that. Whatever, dude, it looks fine. It looks fine. I did notice that the way it's shaped is that when it's standing up and kind of facing you head on, it actually has like a V shape, like a slight V aesthetic to it, a V or the Roman numeral 5 for the PlayStation 5. I get it. I don't mind the white gloss either, because if it's white, that just means it'll help hide the fingerprints and stuff all over it way better than any of the black consoles will. And you know what? Every PlayStation system has been black since the PlayStation 2. We're due for something new. It's fine. So I don't want to just sit there and make fun of it, because it's such a moot point. Who cares? People will get over that in weeks, month, not even. It's like when the people first heard the name of the Wii and made fun of it forever, and then it just kind of became accepted and the Wii sold billions. So who cares? It's not worth making fun of. The big thing that I thought Sony did really well with this entire presentation was diversity. This is an all-new console, and to help get people an idea of what's going to be on the console, they showed a wide net of games. There were platformers, there were shooters, there were horror games, there were novel narrative-based games, there were wacky, cartoony ones, there were indie ones. They showed a lot being available for the PlayStation 5. Not everything in there is going to be just for you, because they're trying to show it can be for a lot of other people. I think it's unfair of anyone to go in with the expectation, if at least 10 of these games don't appeal to me, I don't know if I'll get one right at launch. Well, yeah, it's going to be right at launch. It's only going to have maybe 2 or 3 games you're going to really want to play. There's a lot of really good ones in there that I was like, wow, that looks really cool and interesting. I don't know if I'll play it, but that looks good. That's a good sign. Like, that's a wide net for a lot of people to want to get a PlayStation 5 and have something to play with it. They did such a good job with that. They also did a really good job with showing off gameplay. A lot of the new games that they showed, or familiar ones, they showed off enough gameplay in there that it kind of helped drive home, like, this, this is real, this is tangible, this is actually happening. I counted I counted about 26 games are shown, give or take, and I counted about 16 of them showing actual gameplay, and I didn't count like the ones that looked fake or were just like trailer footage or whatever. I mean, like, actual gameplay. I counted 16 or so, give or take. And then for games that they said for sure are coming this year, 6. At least 6. So that's a pretty good amount. And like everything they shown that was new stuff for PlayStation 5, what I liked about it is that they didn't show off any of the previous staples that people have gotten so tired of. Think back when PlayStation 4 was coming out, Wii U coming out, the Xbox One was coming out. What did we see is like, here's a new game for the system. Assassin's Creed port, Call of Duty port, Madden port. All of like these long-running yearly franchises, they would show this off for the console and then call it new. They didn't do that at all. Outside of maybe NBA 2K21, like, they did a really good job just showing off new, diverse stuff. Big missteps though. People wanted information about the PlayStation 5, and they didn't get it. All they showed off was how the console looks, okay, but people wanted to know price point, people wanted to know release date. especially in the price point one, because they showed off two different models. One with a disk drive and one without. The one without the disk drive they just called the digital edition. Okay, so then what's the difference between them? Does the digital edition have a bigger solid state drive than the one with a disk drive does? What's going to be the price difference between them? How much cheaper is the digital edition? And do I have to use PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus to get any of that stuff or run there? What's further streaming capabilities? Is it going to have like the cross play capabilities? Does it have backwards compatibility at all of any kind? None of that information was given. And that kind of felt like the biggest misfire. Of all the times to show it off, that would have been the time to get people to understand and start accepting it. There's a lot of rumors going on right now of what the price point is going to be, and I only think it's fair bringing those up because it's just rumors, and maybe that's why they didn't say it off right away, because it's going to be more expensive than what people want. But either way, that lack of information really brought down the rest of the conference for me. So, final grade for this one compared to everything else of the entire press conference, I would give it a B-. B-, like it was good. Nothing mind-blowing, nothing that was like lose my mind insanity, but it was just solid all around, really good stuff they showed, very diverse, very, like a lot of gameplay stuff, like it was good. But the lack of PlayStation 5 information was just like what took it away a little bit for me. But anyway, that's the Sony's not E3 press conference. No, there's not really any other ones to talk about, but if anyone else suddenly craps one out in this pseudo E3 time, I'll talk about those two.